Welcome to another Three Aficionados. I'm your host, Steve Yip, and I'm joined here with Daniel Ross and Peter Pitton. And thanks for joining us for another episode where we discuss watches, cars, all things vinyl and beer, this kind of crap. So let's crack open a new beer here, boys. And with that, we'll jump right in. What are you boys drinking today?
I got this Kronenberg fruit.
Kronenberg fruit?
That's a real aficionado drinks these things.
Is there actually Kronenberg fruit? Doesn't sound French.
That's fruit. Kronenberg Blanc, fruit, rouge.
Oh,
Blanc.
Okay, I thought you were being inappropriate there, Daniel. But you actually are drinking fruit.
Really. I didn't have anything else in the fridge. Sorry to disappoint.
I'm drinking the anti-fruit, the White Raven Apex Predator.
Oh, cool.
What's on the wrist today, Peter?
I have my Seiko, which I don't know the reference number, but it's on the mesh strap with the blue. It's got a lot of blue on it, honestly. I was going to say blue bezel, but I think it's basically almost all blue, so it's kind of fitting with everything else on me today. I feel like this is a good watch to wear, but it's a good one. It's comfortable. I like it. It feels good on the wrist. I like how the back, I think it's one of my only watches too that actually has the open back case too. It's kind of neat to see what's happening on the inside of it. I always kind of appreciate that, but yeah, it's a cool watch. I've worn it a couple times, I think, on the show, and every time I wear it, it's just one of those that like I always catch myself just staring at kind of thing. One of those people who like you can look at me and I'm probably looking at my watch like a good portion of that kind of thing, or always like playing with it kind of thing. It's bad. But.
In general, yeah, that kind of phrasing while wearing an all-matching blue outfit, always playing with it there, Peter, in your blue suit. Well, for those who aren't on YouTube, Peter is wearing all blue with the Scottish flag, and he's wearing blue hat, blue shirt, blue watch, and I'm just about to blue myself. So, Daniel, Mr. Cowboy Hat, what are you wearing today?
You like that, eh? I had to do a dance and sing a song in order to get that out from the Calgary Stampede. I'm sure one of many city boys who've danced and sang just to get a hat. It's like Mardi Gras.
Was that the infamous Stampede event with two guys and one girl?
You know, the Calgary Stampede it really is the greatest show on earth. You know? Yeah.
It wasn't this year.
This year, I suppose they decided to just put up a middle finger and say, screw COVID, we're gonna have a party, no matter what anyone thinks. But this week I have decided to show you a watch. Let me just get it here out of my trophy.
Is that a spittoon?
This is a trophy. You never held the trophy before?
Never held a spittoon trophy.
Do you not know what this is?
You sure that's not Uncle Emmett? Sounds like Uncle Emmett's remains there in that tin here.
I'm saving this just for myself for later, so I can put myself in this. But let me just pull out the watch for today. It is not on my wrist because the strap has broken completely on it. So I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to show off a ESQ or Esquire made by Movado. Oh yeah. Now that is a seriously analog piece of kit right here. So this reference number is E5470. Just for those of you who want to look it up, you'll find that it has been since discontinued, and I can imagine that there's a good reason for that. So the strap on it was originally rubber, it's no longer rubber. It's now a hard plastic, and it has shattered in multiple places. Let me get the rest of it out of the platoon here for you. You can see.
So that's the entire watch that's completely captured inside of the spittoon.
It exploded inside of it. No, this one that I went to go put on, and everything had just stiffened up and broken. So as I decided to bring out a watch that I can't wear instead of show you the watch that I can wear. It has a interesting custom strap. So if you're in the market for a watch, buying a short run watch that is on the affordable end of the price line, just be careful what you're shopping for. So you think because it says Swiss made that it's quality, but I don't know if it is. I would say it's one of the fastest depreciating brands you can buy.
Is the watch running? Like, is the actual?
It's currently not running, but it does work.
Okay.
Yeah. There are things I do like about it. Like it's got a pretty sweet carbon dial, real carbon, not
Cool.
just.
Oh, nice.
Oh
not
yeah,
in BS. So for those of you listening to us, if you check out our page, you'll see it pop up here sooner or later. Things I like about it, I like that it's a chronograph because I like the design. I just like the look of them. I like that they actually tried to do something with it and threw some style out of it. I like how the case itself actually feels quality. Dislikes, everything else feels low quality.
Low quality?
Feels low. It feels like it does not feel luxurious.
Daniel Ross, Esquire, low quality.
Once made by Movado, once called Esquire, now it's ESQ, and you can't buy one. So yeah, I do like it though.
It does
and
look nice.
I'm gonna find a strap for it somehow, one way or another. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know, and I'll pass it off to the aficionados and see what they think.
Well, I have no way to fix that, but I do have an older, slightly more vintagey watch. I think it's got one toe in modern and one toe in vintage. So I've previously worn the 5513 Submariner. Here's the Kermit, the first 50th anniversary Kermit with the green bezel, but it's still a stainless steel. It still has those beautiful tapered lugs. And you just can't see that on the Hulk. Like it's so chunky and huge on the wrist compared to the Kermit. The Kermit's got these classic looks, and in the right light, it really picks up that green and just looks so vibrant. And then in other lights and low light, it looks like a regular, slightly semi-vintage looking kind of Submariner. And for those who kind of can tell, you can just tell that it is a Kermit because it's got the black dial, the green bezel, the stainless steel bezel, and just listen to it. It doesn't sound like the 5513 bezel, and it doesn't sound like the new Rolex Submariner. This just has a really nice click in between.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It actually reminds me a lot because I don't know, I think it's the lume. The lume lights up like how I remember old glow in the dark, like 80s, 90s action figures. Like I had a Green Lantern guy, and he had like a little lantern that he carried, and his lantern glowed just like the way that this glows in the dark. So it just kind of has that vintage cue to me. It harkens back to my childhood and when I used to not talk like a douchebag and use words like harken. I can't believe I used harken, but anyways, it's a nice watch. I like it a lot. It's perfectly in between. Things that I also appreciate about it are that it's got the maxi dial, but it doesn't have the maxi case. So you've got increased larger hands, and you've got increased larger dial, with markers. So you have greater legibility, but you still have the smaller case kind of feel, especially with these lugs. Things I don't like is this bezel. This thing still feels like a chunk of change just rattling around in your pocket, and it just jostles, where you don't hear that on the regular current ceramic Submariners. So I appreciate the Hulk. I appreciate the Kermit. I appreciate the Cermit the least of the three. But on like in person when I'm wearing it, I was actually starting to think maybe I should let go of this, because I actually saw on the Can Watch Co forums that one had sold for like 25 grand. And I was like, this one's in really good shape too. And it's a complete set, other than the bottom of the outer box being missing, which I could easily get. And then I was like, oh, I'll just pull it out of the safety deposit box because it's gotten like no wrist time recently. And then suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I love this. And I remember you and I, Daniel, previously were thinking, which one would you get rid of, Hulk or Kermit? Back when I didn't even have the Cermit. And now my priority list, I have no idea what it is now. I think I still like the Hulk the most, then maybe the Kermit, then the Cermit. That's where I'm at right now. I think I've talked too much about the Kermit, so I'm going to let go of that. And let's jump to things that people don't want to perseverate on. Let's talk about watch news. Okay, so I'm going to share the most recent watch news if I can get the right screen. So here we've got the most recent spot of a prototype Yacht Master. Sorry, I haven't eaten and I'm just drinking beer, so that's basically the meal of the day. Titanium case Yacht Master. Now the Yacht Master never really did much for me before, but this one looks pretty awesome, at least from what I'm seeing on the wrist here. Seen on Sir Ben Ainsley at the helm during a training session. I have no idea who Sir Ben Ainsley is. I think he played Gandhi one time. But I think that here it looks like his watch is like nicely black and dark metal. And it looks like it's on a fabric strap in his photos where he's posing with it. So it'll be kind of cool. I don't know, what do you guys think? This would be the first titanium Rolex watch to be ever developed. What do you think, Daniel?
I'm not a huge fan of the Yachtmaster. I mean, I like it fair enough, fine enough, but it seems this is me like just picking a gripe with Rolex for making a ton of watches that are all very similar. You know, like while I want to stick to my like aficionado roots and just be like, yeah, Rolex, this is awesome. More Rolexes to love. I wonder if it's like let's throw another Rolex into the mix for certain people to just add to the collection. I don't know if making the same watch out of a new material is really bringing all that much to the table, when maybe the Yachtmaster could have been made from titanium from a long time ago. What do you guys think?
Peter?
Yeah, like I think it's interesting nonetheless. Like you did kind of touch on a good point. Like if I were ever to think of like myself, like even like owning a Yachtmaster, it's probably wouldn't be something I would ever. The only one I've ever really considered before was the Ever Rose. I think that one's kind of cool. I think it's got like a good look with the matte black. But this is kind of one also now that brings up the same thing. I kind of like the color, or I guess the color of the bezel and everything like that. It looks really good. I think it reminds me almost of the two-door I believe it's the black base ceramic that they just released kind of thing. It reminds me almost of the same kind of vibe as that. And I really do like how it's just like all blacked out kind of thing. It's got like a good look to it. But I do kind of agree with what you said in the sense where it's like there's not a ton really going on other than that, right? Like they just did a new metal, and that's basically about it. But I think it's nonetheless kind of cool. It'd be interesting to see once it actually comes out what it looks like. But yeah, it's interesting. Would it be for me? Probably not. But It is kind of cool.
For those who can't see the video, we've got a photo of Sir Ben Ainsley pointing,
Having a good time.
with his wrist, sporting the Yachtmaster, and he's pointing at a man's junk in the background, I think. And it looks totally like the guy is in high school class when he just tucked it up under his elastic band. Anyways, all I can say is that gets, a full spandex boner for me. I think it actually, to me, bridges the gap just aesthetically. Does it really make me a Yachtmaster believer? No, not necessarily. But I was never really that big of a fan because the Yachtmaster has like the bezel, I believe, is rubber. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I know that they've done the rubber strap with precious metals, and they've had the rubber on it, and everyone went nuts on it. But it really seemed like a clash to me. This seems to, blend a lot of features that seem very cohesive. So you got, a titanium dark case, you've got a dark rubber bezel, and you've got a dark fabric strap, I believe. So I think it looks cool, especially on his wrist. It's a 42 millimeter. So I don't know if I could really pull it off, but I think of all the Yachtmasters that I'd potentially consider, it would be definitely this. But it's certainly not top of my list. I'd say I'm hopeful and I'm open. I'd put this in the hierarchy of where we've talked about some hot hatch cars that have been coming around. Definitely not the WRX, which I was kind of lukewarm on. More so on the Golf R end of things. Does it make me really go crazy and give me palpitations? Maybe not, but it seems like kind of a cool balance of things. Probably not a long-term keep from my perspective. What do you think, Daniel? Are you going to change your position? Are you going to dig in?
You're like, oh yeah, he's getting ready to talk. I'm glad you pointed out the knight over here enjoying his mates. Like I looked down at the watch and got very excited. Just pointing it out to everybody. I went shopping for a watch a couple of years ago or several years ago before I took a new job working on a yacht. The Yachtmaster was not in the price bracket that I was looking at, but it's I like the look of it. Like I like the look of pretty much all Rolexes. You have to be pretty grumpy to say I don't like that. But like I do like it. Do I understand the point of it? I mean, like someone who's heavy into marketing would have to take some time to explain to me why, as you mentioned, like a rubber bezel or rubber insert is like necessary. I don't know, but if you want rubber on a watch, the Casio makes the G-Shock. I bought the G-Shock for the sake of working on a boat. When you're on a boat and you're flying around, like you're literally flying around.
Is this the Rolex Casio? Maybe.
Yeah. Like the Casio sounds like a great option. So I don't know. I think I forgot what I was originally going to say, but
I think you got distracted by the tucked up under the waistband bone. Well, in
Jeremy Clarkson would call that the gentleman's sausage distracting me. No one wants to talk after that.
Oh, I'm not touching that. Well, I'm just going to show, I don't know if I can get it to. Okay, so this is just an example of how this clasp drives me nuts on this Kermit. This old clasp, you have a diver extension, and I'm trying to get it to extend, and it's not extending, so it's pissing me off. So, anyways. This shows why it is still vintage, and the best clasp in the business is being made by Rolex right now today. Let's jump from watch news to car news. We'll give that a soft maybe. I think I'd probably go for it, but I don't know if I'd keep it in my collection forever. So car news, what I would get rid of my Golf R for, which I haven't even received yet, it would be the Civic Type R 2023. There's some prototype photos that have been circulating around online in this little, looks like a blood transfusion kind of red and dark gray camo pack, and I think it looks pretty good. So it looks like the new hatchback Civic generation. They've got the Type R variant with a big wing that looks like it might potentially have an adjustable kind of strut supporting it. It looks like they've dialed back and made it much more conservative. I don't know. It still looks like a bit of a hunchback here for those who can see the images here. I think overall it's probably a better direction for their aesthetics. Looks like it, I mean, I think everything's in rumors right now, but likely still retaining a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine and probably somewhere around 300 horsepower, although it might be pushing a little bit higher. I think some outlets have been estimating maybe it could go up to 400, but I imagine even with all their wizardry of their limited slip differential, it probably won't be able to put rubber to pavement with a front wheel drive approach. It does retain the 3 exhaust pipes, the 3 poo chutes, as Jeremy Clarkson would say. And I think overall it looks pretty good to me, and I definitely put down a deposit from my perspective. What do you think, Peter? Were you going to give this a lukewarm as well, or are you thinking that this could potentially be in your future?
Out of all of the like recent Civics or things like that, I would say this one honestly hits it for me more than anything. Even like compared to like the most recent Civic Type R, as cool as it was almost like I found a little bit like too much in a sense. Like this to me seems a little bit more proper, and I kind of just like it's still like it's got like its cool sporty elements and things like that. But I feel like the most recent generation Civic Type R, I just was like so over the top and like sporty looking. I feel like this just kind of looks a little bit more in my sense, something I could see, and it just like hits a little bit more design features that I enjoy more personally. Maybe that'd be a better way to put it. But
I think we talked about too much manga kind of or manga appearance to it before.
Yeah.
I think that this might be a little bit more of a compromise for those people who kind of want to be grown-ups and still drive, a bit of a hot hatch.
It looks really good though.
Would you give this a tucked up boner under the elastic band?
Sir Ben Kingsley in one of these. Yeah, I don't know. I think it looks like a Kia Stinger. What do you think about that comment?
I agree. I was like, there's something familiar about the taillights. There is, I think, a Kia Stinger element to that. That being said, I don't know.
Like
some elements of Kia look okay to me, often because they seal it.
I see like a very Audi element to the rear end. I don't know what but
yeah, there's something Audi about it. But I don't know. I saw a Honda Civic Type R yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, there's another car that's just driving by."
That's why I got a Golf R. It was like when I saw Civic Type R as being priced at higher than what the Golf R will be coming in at, I went, well, it makes no sense for me to be going after a Civic Type R when I can get a brand new car that will probably outperform it right out of the box. So yeah, that's why I think the Golf R makes sense, just because of the market currently. But I think the Civic Type R is kind of interesting on its own, but I agree that styling is a little over the top and probably not my style.
I like that Subaru has kind of streamlined the look of their WRX and STI. And I wonder, like I see that huge spoiler off back. Like what's the point? Is it actually beneficial? Does it hit speeds where it's needed? Or is it like exclusively a styling exercise, in which case it's just like another vent that is non-functional?
I think at this point, the essential design cues are that it has to have an exhaust of three poo chutes, and it has to have a wing. And, that's non-negotiable for, Civic Type R fanboys. And I respect that. This one actually looks like it might have function because you seem to be able to potentially adjust it. It kind of reminds me of the uprights of the GT4 the original before that I had, the 981 generation, I think. And then it's pretty much been similar uprights in the most recent generation. I think it's got some interesting, there's some good angles and there's some not good angles. So this angle here, the front forward kind of quarter panel sight, it looks kind of cool. It does remind me of some of the old Civic kind of generations, but yeah, it's not beautiful. I would never say that any of these Civic Type Rs have been very beautiful. It's probably an acquired taste, just like a lot of Subarus are.
That front end looks like a Nissan Skyline, like R34, maybe R33.
You know what? That makes me feel better because I was thinking, is this a Nissan Sentra SER V-Spec from like back when? It slightly reminds me of that, but I think that's partially because a lot of the vents and all the things are kind of covered up. But certainly with all the camo on wrapped up, it certainly looks like, I don't know, bulbous. It certainly has some Sentra Nismo kind of elements to it, I think, perhaps.
I was getting the same thing too, Daniel. When I saw it at first too, I was like, looks like an old, like if you cut off just right at the second door there, you can get definitely old.
Yeah.
On vibes, right?
Yeah. I like the design with the long bonnet, but I do wonder what the purpose is as well. Like it looks like there's huge front and rear, like both front and rear seem to have massive overhangs on the car.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's not true and it's just trickery on the photos. But like
Oh, that's too much overhang. You're
it
right.
appears like it's a bit much. Like the headlights, yeah, it's very apparent like how long the car looks from these pictures. So I don't know. Like that's kind of something that everyone aims to minimize. Everyone except for Ferrari. Everyone seems to try and like minimize the overhangs, and Ferrari goes for what they want, and you can't question Ferrari. They're Ferrari.
Yeah,
They
well,
know what.
Ferrari. I've scraped the underside of my front bumper going from like my back alley into my garage. That overhang is bloody long. The other thing about this is I think it would look way better if it was just a 3-door. Whoa, June.
Contact.
I should have poured my beer in the trophy.
Yeah, you should
Sorry about that, everyone.
Out of the trophy.
Everyone awake?
Uncle Emmett tastes good.
And what? There we go. There we go. See you. Yep. Everything's back.
Sorry to the people who are listening to the podcast. This is Daniel fucking around with tin, but and experimenting with beer, and that has fruit in it. It's turning into anyway. So I think that it's better than where it was before, but it's like, what was the most classic image? It was the Integra Type R, right? Obviously, that destroys everything else. I think the Integra Type R was classically beautiful for its time and is a timeless design that continues to stand up. I don't think I've ever seen a single Civic Type R where I've gone, that is gorgeous. But that's my opinion. But we'll see what it looks like outside of the camo. But I think that I'm glad that it at least looks more conservative, that I could actually drive it without my wife laughing at me every time I get into the thing.
I don't know about that.
Well, there's a pretty much, yeah, I mean, she'll laugh about me getting into the car, but the car itself, I'd say that, she's laughed at me with the GT4 when the windows wouldn't go up, they'd go up and then they'd bounce back down. And then she'd laugh at me about, what was the other car, the GT3 RS, just the fact that it was just so impractical and that you had to like basically use the back region with no seats as luggage storage. But anyways, I digress. I want to give a little bit of update as well to my garage. So as I mentioned previously, we had the F355 1995 6-speed featured on Bring a Trailer, and it was a bit of a disappointment. I was really hopeful that it was going to go for more than what it ended up going for, and it didn't actually meet reserve. So bidding seemed strong going up to it, and then it's suddenly tapered off at 78,500 US, which was like way under what I had seen for like clean cars. And like I recognized this thing had a claim previously, and then it's Canadian, so then they have to worry about things. And then there was a potential mileage rollback because someone at the registry didn't figure out mileage versus kilometers when they entered it. But regardless, it didn't meet my reserve. The reserve was set actually at 95 grand US. I think I can now disclose that. So it didn't meet it, and it never sold on Bring a Trailer. But I have subsequently sold it to one guy tentatively, verbally, and the guy is actually like a colleague out in Toronto. And the guy then messages me on Sunday and says, I can't do it. So he backs out, and I was like, really? That's pretty impressive, the lack of professionalism and commitment after he said that he would commit to it. And I was already arranging for transport, but luckily there was a local guy who was still interested, and so he's going to pick it up. He's already sent me the deposit and pretty similar purchase price, and I'm pretty happy I got out of it with my shirt. So the 355 will be gone probably next week or the following week. And I'm kind of happy that it's kind of, moving on to a good ownership, and it's going to stay local. Daniel, are you going to miss it? You never even saw it.
I'll miss the aesthetics of it, from the sound to the looks. I think it's a beautiful car. I think that a lot of people missed out. But why do you think that it went for the price that it went for?
I think there's a few factors. One was so the Carfax showed that there was structural damage. But the one that sold in like spring, in like March or April, it had a previous claim. I didn't have the records of what happened. It was back in the States, and it was like, I think back in 2003. So quite a long time ago, and subsequently owned for a decade in Canada and driven and well maintained. But that was a bit of a black eye, and I didn't have records about what happened. The other thing was this mileage rollback, but I had consistent records that showed that it had appropriately accrued more mileage and did not seem to show any rollback at all. And then the final factor is that it's a Canadian car. Well, it's an American car, but in Canada. And probably a lot of people who are seeking this would be in America, and they're probably apprehensive of importing, especially now that we're approaching fall into winter soon. So, but I'm glad that it's going to go to a good owner locally. And, to be honest, I sold it, a bit more than what I put into it. So I think it was a good ownership experience. It's what I always aim to have, good experiences, a little bit of driving, some months with it, getting to know it. I didn't fall in love with it. I certainly appreciated it and enjoyed it, but it wasn't like my 430 F430 with a 6-speed manual. This was super cool, but it was a bit of a headache. And here's an example of when my wife laughs at me. This car, it's certainly an Italian car and has its own finicky aspects to it. And, when I had to pay for the engine out service for the belt, that was certainly, a bit of a gulp. And I understood that was coming up, but, this is all something to be factored in. And so to me, it's certainly not something I'm worried about letting go. I think that there's a lot more on the horizon. My short term is the Golf R. I think there's a lot of things that are on the horizon. And that probably brings me into a bit of a teaser for next week. I'm hoping that I'll be able to share some kind of rumors that after learning that my local Porsche dealer might have some news for me of upcoming Porsches. But I know that I've got the Golf R coming. I know that I've got a GT3 Touring allocation in the future. And, I still have my F430, and I'll be letting go of the G-Wagon strategically whenever that might be. I'm thinking probably October, November. We're in October right now, so probably either this month or next month. And whether that might be for a trade-in for something that's like a grail or just a sale, like private sale, then we'll see. That's my strategy.
You should call Porsche back and say, I already have a Beetle coming. It's okay.
That's
We
true.
already have a Volkswagen coming. I don't need what you have.
Well, actually, okay. So you mentioned to me the other time, I'm not sure if it was during the recording or if it was a message offline about, have you really considered everything appropriately on the horizon, especially when we were thinking about the A12? So you mentioned Lamborghini, and I went deep into thinking about the Lamborghini Huracan STO. And that was like a little bit of a temptation factor, but it's basically a GT3 race car. But to me, still, I don't know. I've seen a comparison that was done by Car Magazine that they did of like their enthusiast cars of the year. They still gave the crown to the GT3, the Porsche GT3, over the STO Huracan. So, I mean, it would be super cool. It'd be crazy, but I don't know. I've never driven a Lamborghini, and I'm not sure if I'm a Lamborghini guy. And the design is pretty bonkers. It's a cool car. It is in line with like the Speciale. It's probably going to be the last naturally aspirated V10 that they ever make. They're saying 2024 is when they end production of pure naturally aspirated engines. So they're like, make a run on us, you know, buy all the Huracans, buy all the Aventadors. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm convinced. I think that still, to me, the ones that are out there, I still am mostly a Porsche and Ferrari guy. But, you know, the other problem is that you have to commit to it, because it's going to be another like, I think it'd be like a 2-year commitment. You'd have to put it down a deposit and assume that you're probably going to get it in like 2023 maybe. So I don't know. What do you think, Peter? Should I shift over to Club Lamborghini? I don't know if I can rev the piss out of my engine and sit in parking lots and go shirtless and flick my hair back. And now all the
How do you do
Lamborghini
all
people
those
are going to
things?
shun me, but you know.
Man, out of all the cars I've been in, like the two cars that have like put me back more than anything, I would say, are for sure the GT3 and then the Huracan Performante. And I gotta say, like, for just the sound of a Lamborghini and just the pull and like there's something else about it. I've never driven one specifically, so I mean that would be, I guess, a question to see. But I'm like, I would say personally on my hierarchy, Lamborghini generally falls higher than most other cars, but it depends on the model. Like the V10s for sure, I would say are more to me kind of what I like kind of thing. And I think like this STO is crazy. It hits all of the style points as well as the sound and the engine and everything. So it'd be interesting to see if what it would actually be like to see one and actually get a chance to get behind the wheel of one, because they're pretty crazy. And I've watched a lot of videos on the STO because it's one of, I would say, my more intriguing cars at the moment. But it's pretty cool.
I think that you would look right in an STO. I feel like I would look like an aging old man who's just trying to maintain his youth. I get what you mean, and you've had more experience than I have. For some reason, the Lamborghini website is not even loading. That might be a reflection of reliability, although apparently the powertrain is good. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. I would say that the rear-wheel drive Evo RWD, that appeals to me aesthetically. This is just a little bit nuts in the design, and I really respect what they've done for the downforce. The fact that this is actually a GT3 car for the road, and the fact that they've only focused on handling, brakes, and the body and lightening it, and not really touching the engine. It's very in line with what we see with Porsche GT3, you know, maintaining the naturally aspirated formula. But I don't know. I think that I'd really have to drive it to know for sure. and it's a hell of a lot of money to put in on that bet. Like previously, Lamborghinis have really not really appealed to me, other than the classics. You know, I grew up in the ages where I chased down a Diablo in the dead streets in the middle of the night in downtown Toronto in a Honda Civic hatchback 88, just with my foot to the floor, just trying to keep up to that purple Diablo. And that still sticks with me. And I was like barely having a license at that point, and that was still probably the top 5 car experiences of my life, just chasing that thing down and being like, wow, I could never even fathom. And here I am. I feel so privileged, the fact that I'm here sitting talking to my patient who shares passions with me, and talking about potentially buying a Lamborghini and being like, oh, I don't know if it's really right for me. I just wish that we lived in an era where it was like, hey, should I get the Countach? You know, the Countach is like timeless. And I know that they've made the new Countach, reinvented, whatever, like 100 versions of that. And I actually think that it looks pretty good, but it's really just mostly an Aventador, but way outside of my price budget. What I'm basically saying is, I'm a douchebag, and I appreciate that I'm a douchebag, and I appreciate that I can even fathom this as a possibility. But to commit 2 years down and say, yes, I'll buy this car without ever driving it and having no experience, I don't know. It might be challenging, especially knowing that there's a Porsche GT3 coming. There's, the possibility to get a Speciale or a 4.0 RS or whatever supercar Porsche might make in the future. I feel like I'd shoot myself in the foot if I committed myself. This is the same issue that I had with the 812 GTS. Like if I went 812 GTS and I committed to 1.5 to 2 years of this, would I kick myself because I lost the opportunity to act on something that really made my heart go crazy? And I get the same sense with this. It appeals to me from certain angles, but from other angles, it's like, is that really me? This might be on the other end of the scale, where the 812 GTS was too conservative. This might be too bonkers. I feel like this is more of a Peter Pitten, like, shit, I just went through chemo. Give me that fucking STO. Life is short. I gotta own my Lamborghini. And if I could own it right now, if I could put money down and get it tomorrow, then that would be a different formula. But to commit 2 years of my life to this, I don't know. This thing's got a lot of colors and looks a little bit Lego-y to me.
2 years is a good amount of time for you to work on your resting bitch face, though. Right? You smile too much. We all smile too much to own this car. That's the problem at the end of the day. We're all too happy. If you saw someone roll up in that in front of Starbucks, because that's where they roll up in it, they don't step out smiling. They step out and then they stare at you like, why am I here? Who are you? I think that, yeah, this is my Lambo. I own a Lamborghini, which means I don't smile. I don't know. Like, here I am totally just like tearing into it, but I like Lambo. I like Lambo.
It's a piece of shit, but I like Lambo.
No, I'm not saying it's a piece of shit at all. I think it's probably.
I think you're shitting on the culture of Lamborghini. Would that be accurate?
Well, I mean, I could pull back and just shit on luxury culture a little bit if I wanted to, like, but there's no point. This is an amazing product. And there's really interesting things all across the spectrum. This is interesting, but I don't know. I'm not patient enough to decide that today I want a Lamborghini and then wait 2 years and then have it arrive.
That's the thing.
I want to walk into the dealership, buy one, and leave. If I want to wait, I'll talk to a Ferrari or Porsche. Lamborghini's like, yeah, we'll sell you a car right now. You should be happy, but I know you still won't smile. It's too serious.
To me, these designs, I'm sure that you can spec it so that it's like more conservative, but every single design, every single video I see of this car, it just screams, if you own this at one point, maybe not today, but at some point in your life, you've definitely had at least 3 STIs. or STD, not STIs in the form of Subaru, in the form of shankers. And by shankers, I mean that's the thing that's like a bleb on your dick, and then it concaves in and it becomes like a moon crater. This tells me, I don't know. You've certainly lived your life, but it was definitely fueled by a lot of cocaine. Okay, well, this one looks pretty good. This actually looks kind of cool. Okay.
We have right now, we do have up on the screen here the image of the STO, and if you could just go back one or back two now.
This one
No, I
looks
was
kind of
thinking
like
that
a fighter
it
jet.
does remind me of the
Yeah, it
Sesto
does.
Elemento, and you can see the Sesto Elemento in the background. So I think it's cool. I do like how Lamborghini and Ferrari and Porsche incorporate car designs from their ultra exotic cars into their less exotic cars. So I think it's neat that this has a pretty strong influence from the Sesto Elemento.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but this actually looks pretty damn good to me. This looks like a fighter jet, and I would probably lose most of the blue, especially this pattern of blue here. It looks like it has eczema or atopic dermatitis if we're going to really stick into medical terminology and stick from the shanker to anyways, I'm probably going to lose my medical license after this. But that being said, I think that I should get off this and stop shitting on Lamborghini. I respect this. I respect the Evo RWD. I respect the Huracan STO. But am I going to put my money where my mouth is and say I'm a Lamborghini guy and I'm going to buy this for sure? I think the other thing is I don't know, but how much track opportunities are there to take your Lamborghini out? Ferrari, my experience with Ferrari is you get a lot of experiences to go to the track. I've gone like 4 or 5 times this year, all supported by the Ferrari dealership. I would be very interested to hear as to whether it's possible, if it's supported by the Lamborghini dealership, and if there's actually even a culture to go out. Because certainly the stereotype is usually you go to a parking lot, you rev the piss out of your engine, and you go up and down the street and you flex. And most of the time, that's about it. Usually you try to keep your mileage down and usually stay at the RPM range of 9,000. And you can't actually afford your car and you put it in the garage and you wear wife beater all day. But Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong.
But no, by saying that, you reminded me there was that Porsche drive day that we went on, and all the Porsches showed up. And then a few moments later, an Aventador showed up and just kind of rolled through, and then it went off on its own. It's like, do I want to be that guy, or do I want to be where I am right now?
That's true, but I am that guy technically, because there was a Porsche day. There was a Porsche day. It was a PCA event, and my GT3 RS, I had a 997.2 GT3 RS, which I still can't believe I let go. Anyways, that thing was dead. I think I let the battery and die out. So then I took the F430 out with the 6-speed manual, and I showed up to the event, and I was the douchebag. And I showed up in my 430, but I was driving and I didn't take off. Well, I actually did take off early, but I showed up and I took off. And everybody was like, "Oh, you brought the Ferrari." I was like, "Yeah, the Porsche wasn't working." And then they laughed. And actually, I was apparently nominated, even though I didn't renew my PCA membership for this year. Apparently, I got best broken down Porsche of the year. So I think this was a good backup car. Regardless, I recognize I'm privileged. I recognize I'm slightly douchey. I appreciate cars in all forms, and I feel bad for being that guy. I am mindful of perceptions, but ultimately, the thing that really gets me going is my passion for the cars. And what, at the end of the day, I want to do is have good experiences with these cars, whether it's, a Golf R or an F355 or, a Speciale or an end game, supercar. And we lost Peter. Peter's dead. Peter is alive. He's back in his blue form. All right. Well, with that, I think I've gone on so much of a tangent and monopolized all of the time. I want to leave some time here to my cohort because I feel like I talk too much about my privileged life. Peter, ending the last words. Am I a dipshit for not going for this, or am I wise for holding my guns because there's probably something better on the horizon that's a better fit for me?
I want biggest thing, like you said, I hate how you'd have to wait like 2 years. That would be like the biggest like overall
Right.
like factor for it. But then again too, if there was like something that was really worth it, would it be worth waiting? Like if it's just not like specific, I don't, like you said, I don't know if this is necessarily like the car I could see you in kind of thing. Not that it's like I've never, that's the one brand I've never really heard you talk about too much, right?
Yeah.
It's for you, probably not. I don't think it would be worth it just because you'd be waiting 2 years, and then what in the off chance that you wait 2 years, then you get like mega disappointed? That'd be like the crappiest wait for 2 years, right? But like if you were like a Lamborghini fanboy and this was like the car you were waiting for kind of thing, like it'd be different. And that's what I think like you're kind of looking for, is that car that like you've been waiting for this whole time kind of thing. So I'd say wait it out. I think it'll come eventually. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, but may just gotta be patient.
See, I think that I'm playing a bit of a, I don't know, not a Russian roulette, but I feel like I've got a long-term game with my watches. My collection that I have right now, it's really, really good. And there's a few things that I could do to add to it, but I'm really privileged to have what I have currently. And that's largely because of Dimitri tomorrow. But, you know, I recognize the privilege of that. So I feel like that plus an F430, that stays, most of that stays. Everything else can kind of circulate. And I one day could get that end game kind of car. I've got the end game watch. I've got the green and gold Daytona, which I could never sell. I literally went and saw my grandfather. I was there with my wife and I put that watch on him, and she was so amazed because this was the first time that my wife saw what it did to him, and he was brought to life. He's basically says hello, goodbye, and that's about it. And he says, I'm good. And when he puts that watch on, he just lights up. So that watch is the end game. That watch will never leave me, even though it's like worth 3 to 4 times what I bought it for. Same thing with the F430. Everything else can kind of come and go. So I feel like there might be an end game out there. And I feel like there's a GT3 RS out there with 4.0 997 build that's not going to make me bleed. That's probably got higher mileage that I could just go and beat the shit out of and take it to the track. That would be the dream car. If I could have that and then have like Golf R or something daily, that'd be great. But I feel like if I committed to this, it'd be the same deal with the A12 GTS. I'm stuck and I can't move. And that's what I experienced this summer, actually, when I committed and put down a deposit on the G-Wagon. I was like, oh, this is going to be really smart because they're worth way more and you could sell them for way more. And then luckily, you know, now they're not being made in 2022. And so as a result, it'll be worth way more and I'll probably make a good profit. But when you commit to that, then you can't move much. And so I've lost out on many opportunities to buy other cars because of it. And I would kick myself committing to an STO or an A12, in my opinion. But that's my thought. Carsigliere, Daniel, tell me if I'm a dipshit or if I need to commit. Or just tell me about how you got that cowboy hat and all the fun times you had at the Stampede, you know, getting.
I'm not telling anybody what I had to do to get that cowboy hat. That secret goes with me to the grave. That secret goes with me right into
the spittoon. Oh, nice callback, spittoon.
Well, I think you should wait. I don't think it's the right car to buy right now. I'm not saying it's the wrong car for everybody, but I do think that you have something that is great. That's from the old guard, the last generation of kind of cars. Since Lamborghini is going to go public and say that they're not going to be releasing naturally aspirated engines in the future, this is another vehicle that would be, even though it's in a wildly different league performance-wise, you'd have two of the old school analog vehicles, which they would provide, yes, different driving experiences, but is that what you're looking for? Then you have to wait 2 years, and in 2 years from now, there's going to be some pretty crazy vehicles available, I would expect. So will you be left holding the hot potato by buying this vehicle in 2 years from now when a new wave of electric and hybrid electric vehicles come out? Will you then want one of those, you know? Like, because if you're chasing this purely for pure performance, it may be worth just waiting a little bit longer for that next kick, because I think there's a quantum leap probably coming. So yeah,
I
I mean,
think
I
that
don't,
the
I don't think
quantum
it's the
leap,
right one for you.
yeah, I agree. Like I know that there will be more performance, but the question is, when is the right time? And I feel like that time is mostly past. And I know that it's been touched on by like Smoking Tire and by Spike's Car Radio, other podcasts that are much better than ours, where they don't have a host that just goes on tangents of what you should get. But it's mostly, it seems like the golden time was right in the 90s to early 2000s. And I feel like that's the 430. And then the next question is, 458 Speciale, GT3 RS 4.0, or if you're going to go fucking nuts, then just get the Porsche hypercar. And I hope that it's not the Mission R. I've noticed that a lot of their ads on their Instagram, it shows a lot of features of the Mission R, but that car still does nothing for me. So I'm hoping it's going to be something in line with the 918 formula. And to me, I'll bleed myself dry to be able to make that work. If I can get something like a 919 or a 917 or whatever they end up calling it, or a GT1, that would be pretty balls out nuts. And I think that that's worth waiting for. And to give you some background, I had messaged someone out in BC because they had a Speciale. There's a ton of Speciales suddenly out in the market. And I was like, is it time to go for the one that's the highest mileage out west and just say, hey, you're priced too high, come down and come down to my level? Or should I hold my guns and wait to hear what Porsche's cooking? So I might hear that tomorrow. I might hear that in the morning. So as a result, I've booked my discussion with the Ferrari dealer in the afternoon. So we'll see. Hopefully it aligns. Hopefully Porsche just tells me, just wait, be patient. Take the GT3, end up with the supercar afterwards, and you're golden. Or they tell me it's Mission R. It's all electric from here, and you can basically sell your soul. In which case I go, okay, forget it, Speciale. That's my current strategy, but we'll see. Updates next week.
New information next week.
Right. Stay tuned.
Or come back to learn nothing.
For those who aren't, basically, that's pretty much most of my research around Porsche. It's mostly a lot of rumors and conjecture, but regardless. Anyways, thanks for your help, boys. With that, I think it's time to call it a night. I think I've gone off about my collection for long enough. I think for now, Yachtmaster, we'll see. I think it'd be interesting to see and to maybe own for a short period of time. I have a feeling Daniel and Peter aren't fully convinced. They will give me the thumbs down when I walk up to them and be like, hey, look at what I got. But you know that you won't. You know that you won't, Daniel. You'll be like, oh, shit, I like it. And then you'll be like,
wow, oh, nice.
And then I'll be like, nah, I don't like it anymore. So maybe we'll see, Yachtmaster. I put it in the realm of a little bit better than a WRX or a GTR, but maybe a Golf R-ish kind of watch. It's definitely not an end game. It's not a specialty. And I think that the Civic Type R, that's a lot more interesting to me than the Golf R, but it's still on the horizon. It's probably 2023. I think eventually that'd be kind of an interesting all-arounder car that you could drive most of the time. And then supercar, future car. I don't know what I'm doing, but I sold the F355. I'll be enjoying the last moments that I have with it. And I think that in the interim, because the 355 is going, and most likely I'm not getting anything major in the immediate future, I think new stereo might be on the horizon. Maybe it's time to look at discussion of audiophile kind of discussion. I know that we haven't really talked about stereo equipment, but I've got this record room that has now been fully designed. I think it's time to upgrade the amp and the speakers maybe. So let's talk about it next time. Updates from Porsche, updates from stereo, updates from my ridiculously douchey privileged life, and my fortunate experience of sharing it with you guys. Primarily Daniel and Peter, and maybe Chris and whoever might, like maybe one guy who's listening and is like, fuck you guys, I like Lamborghini. But anyways, I won't be a practicing physician next time if anyone's listening from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, but hopefully someone can take on Peter's care in the future. With that, I think we're going to end, and thanks very much for watching and listening. Whatever you end up doing, let's give it one more spittoon, Daniel. Kick that pot. We'll know where to put your. Oh, that's
yeah.
spittoon. You got to ding it again. Jangle that watch. Okay, well, nobody can hear this shit. It's a goddamn podcast, for fuck's sakes, Daniel. Okay, I've drank too much of the Apex Predator. Thank you to Apex Predator. I'm getting the Asian glow. I think I need to take a Zantac. I think that I almost ended it, but I didn't. Luckily, Zoom asked me if it's end meeting for all. And with that, I think we'll end meeting for all. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. See ya.